You're live.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another evening of Alpha Star Radio. Hope you guys are having a great Friday night. I have a great guest in store for you tonight. Very excited to have him on. And I want to ask you folks a question. Have you ever picked up a book and from the first page, you simply just couldn't put it down? Now, I'm not just saying that because he happens to be my guest tonight, but maybe it's because I'm a historian. I love to read about history, real history, true history that has its facts correct. And that's how I feel about my guest tonight and his new book. It's a historical work. It's filled with pulling back the veil of the lies and the cover-ups that have been happening for the last 200 years. Now, tonight, I am joined by Bay Area journalist Elias Castillo. His new book, Cross of Thorns, this examines California's missions, the enslavement of the natives. Well, we always hear about the atrocities that have happened at Wounded Knee, and we always hear about the Trail of Tears, but very, very many of you out there really don't know the history of the California natives and what really happened to them. Mr. Castillo explores the genocide that took place at the hands of a spiritual leader who, well, very soon is up for sainthood by Pope Francis. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to an incredible journalist. He's been in several different periodicals throughout the state, San Francisco Chronicle, the San Jose Metro. My friend, Mr. Elias Castillo, good evening.
Good evening, Linda. How are you?
I am wonderful. Welcome to the show. It's a real honor to have you on. Like I said in my introduction, I haven't been able to put the book down.
Thank you.
I talked to you yesterday, and I was at Chapter 6, and now I'm almost at the end of Chapter 8. So it's
well,
an incredible
good.
read.
Yeah, I think many people are going to find that.
I definitely. I mean, it is a great read. And my understanding is you decided to write this book about 8 years ago. Is that correct?
Actually, I gave it, when I really started writing it and doing the research was probably 8 years, but it took me about 10 years to fully determine how I was going to write it and to where I was going to find the material.
Well, you wrote an op-ed article in the San Francisco Chronicle, and you were criticizing the U.S. Senate bill, and they wanted to provide $10 million in matching federal funds to help restore the missions.
Right.
And in your statement here, it says a false description of how Indians and friars, Spaniards all live together lovingly.
Yeah, no, that's that. The friars and the Indians, no, that and the Spanish, no, they did not live lovingly, as Senator Barbara Boxer had mistakenly placed in her bill.
Right, and you were really surprised at the praise you received, my understanding, from the teachers and parents about your article. There were
after the op-ed was it was an op-ed, and after it was published, I was rather amazed at how many people were agreeing with me. And the Chronicle published 6 letters to the editor. Normally, there's only one, maybe none sometimes, but. They were for it. These were people that knew the truth and had wanted it to come out, and now it had to, but they wanted more of it. And so then about 3 months later, I was surfing the web. I had toyed with the idea of writing a book on it because of how many letters to the editor had come up. And so what? All of a sudden, I saw the terrible dark secret of the missions, which was the head I had.
Okay, I think we're back. We're having some tech problems, and it happens, especially when it's an East Coast, West Coast kind of thing. Wow, we're just waiting.
Hello?
We're back. We're live.
Oh, okay.
It's an East Coast, West Coast kind of day, and the speed. Anyway, sorry about that, but we're back on, and we ended with, I think you were talking about that you got a lot of praise about the article from parents as well as teachers.
Well, I think they were mainly teachers and some laymen that had gone through the fourth grade and built models of the missions made out of sugar and milk cartons. But what I was going to say was that I began toying with the idea of writing the book, and then what really did me in was gave me the final impetus was I was checking the web to see if anything else had been written about the op-ed piece, and I came across The Terrible Dark Secret of the Missions, which was the head I had written for the op-ed piece, and underneath it I saw United States Congress, so that perked my interest.
I'm sure.
And when I logged into it, I found that the entire op-ed piece had been read into the congressional record by Representative Jim Gibbons of Nevada, who said that who wrote that that the Congress needed to be careful and not describing mission life in glowing terms in having the bill have some glowing terms of life in the missions, because a lot of people had been hurt, as he put it. And so that was the final impetus that made me decide that I was going to write the book. And what followed next was a lot of research, years of research, and traveling to Santa Barbara, to the Santa Barbara Mission Historical Archive, the Bancroft Library at Cal, the National Archives of Mexico, and the Stafford Green Library and San Jose State Libraries. And luckily, the Bancroft Library is close. I live in the Bay Area, and the Bancroft Library is the biggest repository of mission documents, and so is the Santa Barbara Mission Archives, Historical Archives, and they have the originals of letters written by the Franciscans. So I did do a lot of visiting and traveling up and down.
Well, this book is like a history book, but no other history book I've read, because it's factual. It's truth. It's you have legal documentation of these events that have taken place, and maybe for me it hits a little closer to home because I grew up on the Monterey Peninsula.
Oh.
So a lot of the people in your book, I recognize those names because streets are named after them. There's Portola Drive, and I used to go to church when I was a kid growing up, we went to church at the San Carlos Cathedral, which used to be the second mission of Monterey, understanding.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this book really resonated with me because I'm a local from Monterey. I've been raised here. My grandparents were involved in the church there, and a lot of the names that you hear in this book.
Yeah, you're very close
names
to it.
in Monterey. Yes, I'm right in the epicenter.
Sure, so to speak. Right. Yeah. Well, that's the way it is all across California. You have a lot of Junipero Serra streets. You have a lot of Loswin streets, and streets named after the first Californians who were actually Spaniards and Mexicans.
That's right. Yeah.
From what later would be Mexico. And they're named after them. There's and some Catholic schools named Sarah School and so forth.
The one next door to the Carmel Mission, I believe, is Junipero Serra Catholic School.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yep,
yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah,
yep.
Well, maybe if they read the book, they'll do some second thinking about this. But it's a Catholic
Absolutely.
school, so I doubt if anything will happen. It's really I wanted to write this for the general reader, and I wrote it in that manner. And so but I also wanted to make sure that everything that was in it was irrefutable. It was irrefutable evidence, and that's why I spent so much time on research. That I didn't want that to come out that that I hadn't done the research. I did, and it's there, and the letters are there, and where it's available is in the book. So that if anyone doubts what I quote Sarah is stating, they can go directly to the book and find it. But it did involve a lot of digging in libraries and finding those books and pouring through them and studying them as to where I
many
could find
hours.
Yeah, lots of hours.
Lots of research.
A lot of days also.
Oh gosh.
But it paid off.
Definitely.
My publisher liked the book enormously, and I think the public likes it also.
Well, I think it's about time someone wrote something about this, because as a parent, in fact, I was just at the San Juan Bautista mission last week on a field trip with my fourth grader, and every year around this time, 40,000 plus fourth graders make their way to the missions at this time to study up on it, learn about the history, and every time I go, I'm annoyed. And
I don't blame you.
I'm annoyed. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with because my own children are of Native American descent. Obviously, they're not of any of the California tribes and nations. Sure. But you had said in our broadcast earlier, that teachers had praised you and whatnot. And I have to tell you, we know, as parents, we know. I mean, how can they keep telling us these lies when we're on this field trip and the mother that I'm with that's chaperoning with me looks at me and goes, how can they get away with pulling this off every year we go to these and just tell these fabrications? I mean, I know what really happened.
Sure.
And I go, so do I. So
absolutely.
People are aware of it. Why can't I guess it would be the California State Department of Education. Why can't they get on board?
It's the department, the Board of Education, State Board of Education.
State Board of Education.
That makes that. Maybe I don't know whether it's the Department of Education or the Board of Education. I think it's the Board of Education, but I may be wrong. But they're the ones that establish this and have reinforced this terrible lie of the missions to fourth graders. And my feeling is that it shouldn't be taught to fourth graders. Fourth graders don't have the maturity to understand the reality of what happened in the missions. And so it should be instead taught to ninth graders or possibly 10th graders who are more mature and would be able to absorb the brutality of the friars and the way they treated the Indians. You can't do that in a fourth grader. They'll wind up having nightmares.
You have a very good point there. And as I'm thinking about this, I think they do that on purpose, and the reason they may do that is because I can't speak for all ninth graders, but I have a ninth grader, and they'll challenge you.
Yeah,
they're at that age where they're going to challenge you on that, and maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the method to their madness.
Well, it could be. Until the Board of Education is challenged, and it will be soon this year sometime. An Indian friend of mine, Valentin Lopez, who is the chairman of the Amamutsan tribal band of Costanoan Ohlone Indians, is organizing a meeting to demand that the Board of Education change the mission myth and tell the truth about what really happened in those missions, and not be telling these lies to the fourth graders.
Well, absolutely. I mean, genocide is genocide, whether it's a Jewish Holocaust, an Armenian Holocaust, or a Native American Holocaust. It's a genocide.
Right.
It needs to be told.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a full genocide, but it's very, very close to it. They may not have, like the Nazis did, deliberately killed people, but they certainly made life miserable for them that they wound up dying. They died of beatings. They died of stress. They died of malnutrition and diseases. Just by the sheer fact of packing them tightly into each mission turned those missions into boiling cauldrons of viruses and diseases that could be easily passed from one Indian to the other in those missions. And the myth that the Indians went there voluntarily is not true at all. They were forced into the missions. Initially, some Indians, mainly the younger ones, did join the missions because they thought that, align ourselves with the Spaniards and their swords and cannon and muskets and horses is a grand thing. But once they found out what really was in store for them, those Indian youth wanted out. But it was too late for them. They had been baptized, and under Sarah's policy, they would never be released until they died, which is not a release, actually. It's a tragedy, terrible tragedy.
After reading, like I said, I'm on chapter 8, and after reading even into chapter 8, it gave me a funny feeling after reading what I'd read, because to think that I, as a child, would go to this church not realizing what really happened on that land and that property. And it just kind of gave me this feeling of, oh my gosh, if people really knew more about what really happened, it would kind of make you stop and think.
That's why I wrote the book. Is I felt that the truth needed to be told about the missions and the friars themselves. Sarah was a very twisted individual. Very dark. The fact that he loved to, what is called in the Catholic Church, mortification. He loved to whip himself. I don't know if he loved it, but he certainly did it often enough to whip himself bloody and burn a torch on his chest. It's just incredible.
He enjoyed self-mutilation.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say he enjoyed it. I think he did it. There must have been some act that impelled him to do that often. Whether he enjoyed it, it's up to people who analyze it, and people that are no more knowledgeable about weird things that people do as to whether they enjoy them or why do they do this to themselves. And the Catholic Church has certainly been one to encourage what they call mortification of the soul. It's a big puzzle to me.
Yeah, when I read that, I had to go over and read that paragraph a couple of times, making sure I actually read did I read that right?
It's shocking, isn't it? It is absolutely shocking. Well,
it is shocking.
The Inquisition. When you look at the Catholic Church and the Inquisition, the Saint Huguenots massacre and massacre of the Huguenots in France, in which this was a Protestant group that was just massacred by the French, and the Pope in Italy, learning about it, just cried with joy and declared it a Catholic holiday. You have to wonder what is going through these people's minds, or the Vatican.
Well, someone who says they're a man of God or a woman of God, and then relishes in the killing of innocent men, women, and children. I see a little contradiction here.
Yeah, I think the more, rather than relishing it, they actually thought they were doing a service to God, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. Killing people and making life miserable for them is not part of the priesthood in Catholicism. Although they may not have participated in it, but they certainly certainly condoned it. They did not say anything about it. Although there were a handful of priests that were shocked at what was going on in California and in Latin America, and they protested vehemently. Bartolomé de las Casas was one of them, and then Orras in California, a priest who also vehemently protested the treatment of the Indians. And then, of course, the Spanish governors protested the life in the missions and the way the Franciscans were treating the missions.
I read that.
The governors had no love. Really thought that the missions were, and they were right, were holding back the development, the economic and social development of California. Yeah, these were men who were enlightened men. This was the century of enlightenment, the century of light, where the rule of kings was being questioned, and that there were other and the beginnings of an attitude that there was more to life than simply religion and Catholicism, and that the right of royalty was also being questioned. So there were some of those people in the Spanish military and Spanish governorships that really thought that the Indians should be better treated and more humanely.
Well, yeah, my understanding is some of those governors wanted them to go into a 10-year educational period. And,
that was the king's ruling. That was what the king had ruled. He had said very specifically he wanted the Indians taught for 10 years, educated, and then at the end of 10 years they would be educated persons, and they would then be released and become Spanish subjects and knowledgeable of what was expected of any Spanish subject. But Sarah didn't do that, and of course he was. People will ask, well, why didn't the king do something about it? Well, he probably never knew. Remember, they were more than 2,000 miles across the Atlantic, and then 2,000 miles more, so it's about 4,000 miles from Madrid.
True.
And it took a long time for anyone to tell the truth. And of course, the governors were not going to tell the truth. They were not going to. They did not want to have the Inquisition breathing down their necks because they protested what the Franciscans had done, which is part of the church. So it just remained there, and but although a few of them, few of the friars did report what was going on there, but it didn't do any good. The church Catholic Church was extremely powerful.
It is.
And,
yes.
Yeah, and you risked being arrested by the Inquisition and tortured to death for protesting.
This is just my own curiosity, I guess, being a historian. Did Father Sarah know what was the revolution that was happening on the East Coast with the colonies and July 4th, 1776? Did California know?
I don't know. I came across in one book, and virtually everything that I have in there, I always wanted to double check it against another account. And there was an account that Sarah had sent money to George Washington, but I could, other than that very sparse sentence in one book, that was all I could find. Maybe he did, but I couldn't find any supportive evidence of that statement.
Okay, I was just curious,
Yeah, I frankly, in my mind, I don't think they did. They might have had some snippets from English merchants or American merchant ships that came to the missions during that period to buy hides, tallow, and horns. Horns were used for backing combs and making combs out of them and so forth. But I just don't know, and I don't think so. I doubt that he did send money to George Washington. It seems far-fetched.
Yeah, well, I think so too. I was just actually curious, because I know California of Mexico at one time, and I'm thinking back. It wasn't until 1850 that California became part of the United States of America. I believe that's. I think my California history is correct there. Could be off a little bit, but I was just kind of curious if they were even aware that there was an American Revolution that gives us as Americans independence.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if Sarah knew this.
That was in the back of my mind too, and I was trying to find. I wasn't trying to find, but in everything I was looking at, I always had my eye to see if they did know, and that little snippet came out, and that was it. That was the only thing I could find in all those books. And I think it's something like that. If the letter existed, and if he did do that, in fact, then it would have gotten picked up by more people.
Well, if you ever come across it, you'll have to share with all of us.
Yes, I will.
Because that sounds interesting.
Right, yeah. I'm still curious about that because I was looking out to see if they did know about the democracy and the fight for independence and liberty that was going on at the other side of the continent, the East Coast, but never came out.
I do want to let my listening audience know, and I was able to get the book. I was going to purchase it through a bookstore here in Carmel, who I'm trying to get you there for a book signing. I think they're waiting to hear the show before they commit, but they wouldn't order it in time. So I ordered mine through Barnes & Noble instantly on my Nook. And
Hello? Hello? I'll hang up. Maybe it can reach you. Bye.
Honey, did you get disconnected?
Yep.
Okay, well, you're back on live.
Okay. So I ordered mine through Barnes & Noble, and there are probably a couple of other places that we can order the book, or you can order the book. Mr. Castillo, do you want to elaborate on where we can all purchase this wonderful book? Okay, so we've lost my guest too now.
Miss Johnston, your guest is there.
Okay.
Right.
So I ordered your book through Barnes & Noble, but I'm sure there's other places that people can order this wonderful book.
Sure. I think that most bookstores will have it. I know in the Bay Area, Books Inc. has it, and Barnes & Noble has it, and others have ordered it and have it in stock.
And you said Books Inc., BOOKSINK?
No, INC.
Paraded.
Yeah, it comes when you pronounce it. It's Book Inc.
So I was thinking of tattoos, I guess.
Oh no, it's just Books Inc. And also you can order it on Amazon. And,
Amazon, okay.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then Powell's in Oregon. Powell's.
Okay.
WELLS. They can all order it for you.
And folks, what I can do is, you do have a website.
Yes. It's www.eliasacastillo.net.
All right, and I posted that on my radio show Facebook page. For all of you out there listening, I will also post all the book companies we just mentioned where you can purchase that book. Getting back to the missions and the book, I know that natives suffered very harsh and brutal conditions, and it's plain as day in your discoveries and your writings. Is it my understanding that there were over 84 plus tribes in California missions?
Well, that's one figure. No one really knows because the missions destroyed virtually all of them, and it's very hard to in those number of tribes. There is one that I used in that there were in the book that there were about 100 tribes on the California coast, coastal area, and that they all spoke a language totally different from each other. Different as Chinese is to English. But how many there were is not known because what the missions did, they would herd people into the missions and then select the oldest ones for the harshest work, and they would die off quicker but it was those elders who knew the Indians followed an oral tradition. They did not write anything down. What they followed was an oral tradition in which they passed on the history and the culture and the religion and the stories of the younger ones. And then, of course, once in the missions, they were the first to die off because of the work assigned to them. So, in that manner, the Franciscans made sure that none of the history or traditions, culture, and religion of the Indians survived, because the people that knew about it and passed it on were the first to die.
Now, how many California natives died at the hands of these missions? Is there a rounded number? Or?
Right. Yeah. It's the most acceptable number is 60,000, and some died in the missions. Now, Valentin Lopez, who was the chairman of the Amamutsan tribal band, tells me that that doesn't count that doesn't count that's another phone that's just ringing.
Well, don't worry, I had a cat meowing a minute ago, so.
No,
it's
yeah,
good.
it'll go away in a few
don't
seconds.
Worry.
It's a phone that usually just I don't have to answer it. One of the things that he believes is that more, possibly 300,000 Indians in California died from disease brought to the Spaniards. And the way that was spread was a lot of Indians would visit the missions just out of curiosity, but they knew they did not want to join or be baptized in those missions. And then, of course, they would pick up diseases from the missions and then carry those diseases, very communicable diseases, back to their villages and infect their village mates. And then you'd have an epidemic there. And some of those villages were very, very isolated. So
did a lot of them die of like smallpox and stuff like that?
Lots of them. Yeah, they just had no immunity to European diseases like measles, mumps, smallpox, respiratory diseases. It was something that they had never come across, and so they would very quickly die of those diseases that we consider minor diseases, and easily you just have to wait it out. But
and now there's vaccines for a great deal of them.
Sure. Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. But in that period, no, they did not have vaccines. But it was a disastrous situation, especially those that were held captive in the missions. They were whipped, they were beaten, and one of the things I aptly remember is when a description of one of the Mission Carmel by a leader of a very important French expedition, which had been directed by the King of France, I think it was Louis XIV, to explore the Pacific Rim and find out what was around it. And one of the things that the leader of the expedition, his name was Peru, P-E-R-O-U-S-E, Peru. I don't know if I was pronouncing it wrong. Right. But he described the Franciscans as reprehensible in their treatment of the Indians for punishing them for acts which really no one paid attention to in Europe. That they were very harsh, and their punishments made those missions seem like exact replicas of the slave plantations they had seen in the Caribbean.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and also that one of the things she said was that women are never whipped in public, but are taken to a far and isolated place that their screams may not incite the men to riot. I
read that last night when I was
Isn't that chilling?
One of the chapters. I read that. It was like the last thing I read before I went to bed, and I'm just going, that is awful. I mean, that is so gruesome.
It is very, very awful what they did. It was. It's just a wonder that any of them survived, but not very many survived, because when they were given freedom by the Mexican government in 1833, they came out, but they were unprepared to exist in a society in which none of them had been taught how to use their the freedom of choice. They weren't prepared for that, and so they went into the furthest reaches of the mountains. But then once the missions were gone, then the gold rush and the prospect, the 49ers came in and massacred more Indians.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The gold rush.
Right. Yeah. That was another killer.
Yeah.
And all the racism that went with it, which affected the Chinese and Asians that came to California.
Yeah. People won't realize that there were a lot of Chinese here. In fact, a lot of the Chinese built our railroads out here.
Oh,
and they were like slaves.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of discrimination. They couldn't bring their wives over. They couldn't bring any women over. Asian women. That it was a terrible discrimination against the Asians in California. And then World War II came around. They continued up to World War II.
Didn't they do the internment camps for the Japanese?
Absolutely. It was totally
awful.
Declared illegal by the Supreme Court, and they ordered the Japanese free, but that was about 3 years after they had done it. So, but eventually the Supreme Court ordered that it was illegal to have done what they did, what the FDR, the President Delano Roosevelt, had done.
Oh, the atrocities that man do, you know?
Yeah, incredible. And then the worst are the Nazis.
I know.
But I know. I don't know. I think that in the book, I quoted Kerry McWilliams, a historian of the 40s and the 50s, who wrote in his book, I can't remember the exact title, but it's Southern California, an Island in the Sun. It goes along that line. But it's Kerry McWilliams. And what he wrote that in regard to the missions, he said that not even the Gestapo could have done a better job of getting rid of the Indians than the Franciscans did.
I agree with that statement big time. In fact, I've done a lot of research and study on other Native American genocides and atrocities that have taken place throughout our nation. And Hitler himself, actually, my understanding is he learned how to exterminate the Jews by taking a cue from Andrew Jackson and what our government had did.
The reservations.
Yep, thanks to our government that Hitler learned all this.
Right, yeah, he adopted the reservation system of herding everybody into a camp and then killing them in there. So, unfortunately, and terribly tragic, disastrous for the world.
I agree.
That system was picked up by someone that was enormously horrendous and vicious.
Yep, there were many monsters in this world that have made history, haven't there been? That it's just incredible.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. I want to ask you a question. Now, I haven't gotten to this chapter yet in the book, but right. I'm looking forward to it. And she reminds me of almost like a Native American Joan of Arc in some way.
Purpurina?
Yes, sir.
Purpurina.
That would be her.
Right. yeah, that was the one. Yeah, she had a lot of guts and intelligence to try to to drive the Spaniards and burn the missions down in that case.
She was fearless, and she was a great warrior.
Unfortunately, the old adage, loose lips sink ships.
Yes.
Two Indians were overheard discussing the rebellion by a Spanish soldier who could speak their language, and then raced that shoulder. The soldier then raced back to the mission, told the priests there, and then the soldiers devised a plan, which was successful in defeating and breaking up, dissolving them, is more of a better word, dissolving the attack. And the Purpurina was supposed to be a very powerful sorceress, and she had said that when the Indians launched the attack and went into the mission, they would find that both priests were dead. Well, the soldiers devised a plan in which they would dress up two soldiers as dead friars, and then the Indians found them, and they said, "Oh my gosh, look at this! She is very powerful." And then, but at a given signal, the soldiers leaped up and began ordering the Indians to surrender, and they were so frightened that they did.
And she is actually buried, my understanding, in San Juan Bautista. right?
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Where her grave is, I don't know. Do you?
Well, I was there last week, and like I said, I was on a field trip, and I kept going back into the church, and on the side of the church, there's gravestones, but there's also like 4,300 unmarked graves of natives that had passed.
Yeah, that's one thing that the mission said. Well, yeah, we buried the Indians. Yeah, you dug holes and just tossed them in there.
Exactly.
That is not a burial.
But there's also another grave, little about a half a mile down from the mission itself, on the outskirts of town, because San Juan Bautista is not that big. I mean, you just don't blink, and you've passed it.
Yeah, right.
I think she might be buried there. In fact, I told myself maybe this weekend or next, when my kids are on spring break, I was going to go take a little adventure out there with the kids and see if we could find her gravestone, if she had one, because she ended up marrying a Spaniard soldier, my understanding.
Yeah, she did.
And converted to Christianity.
Right, she converted to Catholicism.
Okay. So I'm curious. I'm going to go out there next weekend, I think, and kind of look around and see what I can see and find there, because now that I have a little more understanding of our mission's history, it gives me an opportunity as a historian, a person that just loves history, to kind of investigate it a little more and look around.
That would be fascinating. You might have some trouble, though, because you're not going to find well, you might, because she was given a lot of notoriety, and they may have preserved her name, Indian name, which is Toypurina. But they may have also given her a Spanish name. What that name was, I don't know.
Okay, now I have some research to do. It's like detective work.
Yeah, and if you look in the mission ledgers, you may find a lot of women's names, and Toypurina may be among them.
Okay.
But I wish you luck and find that.
So
I'd be curious.
Where are the mission ledgers? Where do I find those?
You just have to ask for them. They'll show them to you.
Oh, okay. So I just ask.
You have to make an appointment ahead of time. Now they may have those ledgers still at the Mission San Juan Bautista. Some of them were taken to the Bancroft Library. Some of them may have been taken to the Santa Barbara Mission Historical Archives. They're scattered. Okay. So it's not going to be as easy as it may not be as easy as finding Toypurina, because her name was changed. What that name change is, who knows?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to look around, and if I find anything, I'll let you know.
Yeah, would you?
I would.
Yeah, that'd be really fascinating to find out.
Well, we have about 5 or 6 more minutes left in the broadcast, and Mr. Castillo, I wanted to let you know that we have a lot of people listening this evening that are part of AIM, the American Indian Movement.
Sure.
And I don't know if you're aware of this, but on April 5th, there is a big protest that is, I would say, I think it's created by American Indian Movement, where I'm hoping hundreds and hundreds of people attend this, but there's going to be a big protest in front of Carmel Mission that day.
Oh, I've heard about that, right. In
regards to protesting the sainthood of Junipero Serra.
Sure.
And your book and this protest actually kind of, they go hand in hand in some ways, because your book is about the truth and history and the real history, and obviously AIM is a movement that's created the empowerment of our Native brothers and sisters, and it's something that goes hand in hand, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people out there listening will be attending this event, myself included. I will be attending this and maybe videotaping a little bit of it and seeing how many people show up. So I guess what I'm trying to say to my listening audience is, if you are in the 831 area code or even the 408 area code, and you want to take a little drive on Easter Sunday down the coast, there will be people at the mission protesting against the sainthood of Junipero Serra, if anybody's interested.
Right, and I think the bigger the crowd there is, the more this mission myth and lie will start crumbling, because that's what really California needs.
I agree. And like I said, I came from a big Italian Catholic family, and when I told my certain women in my family who are very religious the show that I'm getting ready to broadcast about, I prepared them and I said, no, this is in no way any disrespect towards anyone's religion, because I'm not like that. I believe we're all one and we all are equal. Yep. I said, what this is I'm trying to make people see the truth about our history and the truth. I want people to know the truth. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. I had to reassure them. You're not going to be blasphemous, are you? No, I will not be blasphemous.
Yeah.
But they told me that they had no idea this had happened in the mission.
Is that right? Yeah. Well,
my mother knew. My mother said, right? I know what happened. She said, but one of my aunts said, I didn't know that. And she says, they make it sound like they were, it was a tea party.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's, I think, in my mind, I think probably about 75 to 80 or 70 to 80% of Californians have no idea of the truth of what happened in the missions. And the truth about Serra and Lasua and the friars and how they treated the Indians. They were brainwashed in the 4th grade.
Absolutely. And, my daughter is getting ready to do this report where she's got to build a little mission of, I can't remember which mission. I think it was Mission San Jose is what she got.
Yeah.
She has to do a little report. And I asked her teacher the other day, I said, is she going to get a bad grade if I give her the truth about the missions on her report? And the teacher looked at me and goes, I so wish you would.
Oh, that's right. Well, why doesn't the teacher do that?
I guess because they're teachers and, they have to stick to the curriculum that's being taught in these public schools.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happened was that at least 2 teachers called me and said, we don't teach that. I refuse to teach that lie because that's what it is. It's a lie, and I'm not going to teach this lie to 4th graders.
Do you think it's going to change anytime soon?
Well, I believe it will. Because my book, Cross of Thorns, really tells the true story, and it's irrefutable. Like I said before, it's irrefutable. You cannot say this did not happen because it's in the writing of Junipero Serra and the friars themselves, right. and other people that saw what happened. And I think people reading the book will get a better idea. Will get a fresh idea of the brutality of what happened in the missions. People will say, well, that's the way they did things then, and they'll excuse it in that way. Well, then what about the Nazis? Do you say, well, that's what the Nazis did, and so it's okay?
Exactly. No, hopefully in time this will change, and they'll get a better system in place where children are taught the truth, and they're actually taught about Native American history and culture.
Sure, yeah. And the Indians of California had a civilization that had existed for thousands of years and was very sustainable. Very
Absolutely.
Sustainable. They were living in a near paradise because if the land gave out and there was a drought and there was not enough game, they just go take a walk to the beach and dig up some clams or oysters, mussels, crabs, and some oysters.
Absolutely. This is a very beautiful part of the world where we live.
Yeah, sure. It certainly is. It certainly is, and the Indians knew how to use it.
Well, folks, I want you to get out there and buy the book, Cross of Thorns, by Elias Castillo. It's a great read. Mr. Castillo, it's been a real honor and a pleasure to have you on my show, and I hope we do this again sometime.
Well,
it's just been an honor.
Anytime.
And I'm working on that book thing. I will be in touch with you in the next few weeks about that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and it's been an honor. And everyone out there, you guys have a wonderful weekend. Be safe, and we will return next week. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night. We off the air?
I think so.
Oh, okay. What? No, shoot. I didn't want to speak while we're still in the air. But thank you. That was a wonderful interview. A wonderful interview.
It was, and I apologize for. Sometimes that happens. It's happened before.
That's all right.
It's just sometimes there's technology is very touchy, as my producer Tiffany knows. I don't know if she's on with us.
No, there's no problem with that. Hey, how can I get a copy of this?
My show, you'll get it. I can send you a copy after it broadcasts. Now, we pre-recorded, so this show won't broadcast till 6 o'clock on Friday night.
Next Friday night?
No, this Friday.
Oh, this Friday.
The 20th. So it'll broadcast Friday night at 6. I can send you a link if you would like to hear the broadcast, but I will also send you a copy of the show if you'd like. Okay, I can do that, absolutely. Yeah. And so I won't. And I was also going to ask your permission if I could advertise it on your Facebook page.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't like to do that without permission because people are funny about that.
Yeah, no, that's you go right ahead. Could you? Let me give you my. Do you have my address?
Let me get in. I'm in my car, so let me get. It's okay. I'll get a piece of paper while I'm talking to you. I'm getting ready to pick up kids from school.
Oh, okay.
Let me get a pen, and I can get your address. Okay.
It's 350 East Oakwood Boulevard. Oakwood is one word.
Oakwood Boulevard.
Right.
Okay.
Redwood City,
California.
Okay. 94061. Where do you live?
I live in Salinas, California.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm in the valley, yes. And you said 940...
94061.
61. And would you like me to mail you a hard copy on a disc?
Yeah, would that be too much?
Not at all. I can do that. That's easy to do.
Great, that'd be super.
Absolutely. So I should get that copy probably either Friday night after the show or at the very latest sometime early Saturday.
Wonderful.
And I'll get it in the mail by Monday, and you should have it in the next day or two after that. So by next week sometime.
Great.
And I will be in touch with you, too, about the book signing. I'm working on them about it, and I think they want to hear the show. Because she says, well, tell me a little more about it. And I said, this is right up your alley.
Yeah. And,
you're right near the mission.
Right. And tell them that the Santa Cruz Sentinel has had 2 stories on me. And the latest
they have.
If you go to the Sentinel, what's your email? And I'll send you the links.
My email is Alpha Star Radio at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Okay, I'll send you the links to the Mercury News has done a story on it, on this whole thing, and also has Bakersfield, California, and the Visalia Delta Times, and Santa Cruz Sentinel, Contra Costa Times, the Oakland Tribune.
Oh, okay. So you've been in a great deal of periodicals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's picked up.
Okay.
It's picking up now. Snowballing.
Okay.
You can use that as an argument also. That and the Monterey Peninsula Herald has also done, has mentioned the book too.
Oh, is that right? See,
yeah.
I don't get the Herald. I get the Salinas Californian, but I do not get the Herald. I'm going to have to go look into the Herald's archives.
Yeah, they did. They had a small review of the book, and you can look through the book reviews and see if you find it there. But certainly, the Santa Cruz Sentinel has done 2 major stories on it. One was in
okay,
May, and I'll send you those. Okay.
I'll look at it. Wonderful. Thank
Great.
you so much.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch.
Yes, be in touch. All right.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You have a nice weekend, or a nice
you
rest
too.
of the week. All right. Bye,
Bye-bye.
Linda, and thanks again so much.
You're so welcome.
Bye.
Still there, Linda?